This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I break down the wild card weekend of the NFL. We talk about the games that we thought, wow, we were shocked, and the games were like, yeah, we knew how that was going to go. And then we also talk about the matchups this upcoming weekend. Can the Houston Texans pull off an upset against the Ravens? Can the Lions truly prove that they belong? And then we talk about the coaching carousel and the transfer portal happening in college football. All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben, that's Josh, and it's just two of us this week. Just two of us. We scared Bryce away. He's such in a desperate state of a mood. He's so sad. I mean, I really don't know. Josh could probably test on that, but a lot of craziness. I mean, even Josh and I are a little bummed out, but hey, everything has to come to an end. We'll talk about all the NFL playoff games today. We're going to talk about the moves in college football, but before we get to all of that, Josh, how is the weather in Ohio? Because I've heard it's kind of crazy in the U.S. right now when it comes to winter weather.
Yeah, we've had some snow, not much, but it's been the cold temperatures. We've had a lot of single-degree days stacking up on top of each other. So it's been brutal. Anytime you got to go outside, faces
Yeah.
taking a beating.
Well,
Yeah.
it's
You can
funny
feel
because,
your mustache hairs freezing. You can feel the snot that's in your nose just become icicles. You can reach into a freezer at the gas station and it feels warmer than it does outside,
it's
which
just
never
sad.
happens. Yeah.
I mean, it is wild. Because here it's probably about like 30 degrees. It's been probably between 28 and probably 38 degrees, probably pretty solid. But like practice, whenever it comes to practice time, right? It could be nice and 34 degrees, and it comes to practice, it's like feels like 18 degrees, 15 degrees. And like today after school, I was walking out and I wiped out. Like a few of us were like wiping out because it's just a sheet of ice because of all the dew and stuff, just a sheet of ice on the ground. So dude, it's winter's here. I mean, we saw in the NFL games, it's crazy. I mean, to be honest, that's kind of football weather I want to see. But speaking of the NFL games, Josh, why don't we start with the game that we cared about? The game that, you know, we thought that this was the year. Maybe I did.
No, that's only you. Speak for yourself, bud.
Okay. You're right. So let's talk about that Browns game. I think you probably were more leaning, I guess, in the idea that maybe this is, yes, they could probably win this game, but you also weren't surprised if this was the roadblock that they finally hit. They couldn't get over. Am I right? You kind of felt maybe that it could be that way.
I thought Houston was about as far as we were going to be able to get just because it was a team that we had beaten earlier in the season. Granted, I mentioned
Yeah.
that CJ Stroud wasn't in that game, but even with all the injuries that they still were dealing with in this next game, it was like, okay, well, it's not going to be much of a problem. He's not going to like flip, the score by about 21, 28 points and
Yeah.
completely change the outcome. But I know some of it, not all the touchdowns were obviously scored by him, but wow, what a turn of events.
Yeah, it's
That final score of 45-14.
yeah, it is wild because I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Josh. I think that you finally saw the risk of having Joe Flacco as your quarterback finally come to a head when the defense wasn't performing the way we expected it to, the way we know it can. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's kind of like what happened because I think if defense is playing the way it's been playing, yeah, those turnovers, yeah, they come costly. Maybe there's a pick six here or there or a pick, but I just feel like on Saturday was like the tip of the iceberg. It was like the defense's gas like finally ran out, and the offense, which yeah, they've been playing great, but yeah, still making mistakes in the past. Do you feel like it was finally like at a head where like the defense sucked and the offense was just the offense we've always seen it as the last few weeks? It's just maybe a little different.
I think even still, like as good as the defense has been, it's not always shown up in the big moments when we need a
Yeah.
play. We've allowed 38 points to the Colts. We've allowed 29 to the Broncos. Lamar Jackson kind of had his way with us both times, although we did win one of those matchups. But in this game, I mean, we allowed 24 points, basically
Yeah.
all credit to CJ Stroud on those in the first half. And it's like
Freak.
even still, like 24-14 isn't the worst, but then yeah, you see him. We don't score any more points after that. In that third quarter, I believe both scores were pick sixes thrown by
Yeah,
Flacco.
back to back.
And then you mentioned that's kind of the risk where you go with a guy that's definitely not a starter, but obviously a serviceable backup. If we had to have Flacco play 3 or 4 games next year, that's the guy that I would want. But when you also see them continue to play full games, or even guys like Josh Dobbs continue to play game after game, or Taylor Heineke play game after game, you see why they're never like established full-time starters in the league, because eventually like it just shows like the magic runs out, or their inconsistencies just start to show, and they're never going to be like that full-time starter. But I would obviously welcome back Joe Flacco as a backup quarterback for next
Oh,
season,
for sure.
because he can step in and be a veteran, and he has chemistry with the guys that he was able to really establish really quickly, which was awesome to see. But I, at least, even in all that being said, I thought this was at least the one game they for sure could win still.
Yeah, I mean, I think to be honest, like Joe Flacco, like he's played great for a guy his age, and for the fact that he didn't play half the year. But we saw again, Josh, that the running game, and just so you know, we do know that the Browns have fired their offense coordinator reportedly. They haven't confirmed it yet, but they did fire their running back coach, tight end coach, which tight end coach was weird. That was a weird thing, but we saw with the running backs, man, like the running backs just kind of disappeared after what, week 12? It just felt like there was no run game, and you saw that in the Texans game. I think the Texans kind of played it the best way they could. They said, we want you to run against us. Like we're asking you to like run against us." And I just feel like the Browns just didn't have that. And again, not having Nick Chubb is huge, but should have been this big of a drop throughout the year. I don't know. I feel like you're an NFL team. It shouldn't be this big of a drop. But again, it does give credit to where credit's due that Nick Chubb's just a freak. And we did miss that. But no, if you go back to the defense, Josh, it is really frustrating because at times this defense looks like a legendary defense, a defense that can compete with any of the historic defenses. And then there's other games like when CJ Stroud can pick and choose against Newsome, who I don't know how you feel about him, but dude, that dude left dudes wide open, was getting burnt. It just, to me, first off, CJ Stroud is QB1 of that class, which Josh, we've said since day one. And he's proven that he is a legit top, 10 quarterback in this league already. And again,
He's probably already there, yeah.
so again, I just, the defense could only do so much when you obviously could tell Garrett was not healthy. There was no pass rush, and when you
Zero
give
sacks.
and when you give CJ Stroud like 10 seconds to throw the ball, I don't care how great your cornerbacks are, or your safeties are. He's going to find a seam. And unfortunately, we had slot corners who just couldn't keep up with tight ends, couldn't keep up with, fifth string receivers. And yeah, it was just a really rough outing to watch. And yeah, the defense just definitely kind of left a sour taste in your mouth because we also look at, who's going to be able to come back next year. Yeah, it just kind of sucks. But again, the fact that this team lost so many starters and we went to the wild card game with like the third best record in the AFC. I mean, you still like, I still believe Stefanski's up there for coach of the year just for what he did alone with that.
That's kind of the other side of the coin, is like this was a Browns team that wasn't supposed to be there with all the
No.
injuries they had to deal with and all the issues at quarterback. But then on the flip side, it's like the Houston Texans also weren't supposed to be here either. And there's also, I seen a tweet, and I think this is the attitude a lot of Browns fans are having right now. We traded a guy, and we'll get to Tampa Bay's game. We traded a quarterback
Oh,
away
jeez,
that
it
is now
bothers
winning
me.
playoff games with another team to go and then trade for another guy and give our whole future to that team.
Yeah.
And then we just watched that team's future
Yeah.
beat us in the playoffs,
I,
and we have no way to recuperate because we don't have first round picks.
and
And
you,
that I don't know if I exactly fall into that camp, but right now in the moment, it does freaking suck. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, we do know. I mean, everyone that listens to our show knows like where your stance was back at the beginning of this whole saga, right? We know where your stance was. You were a Baker guy. You were like, hey, let's keep him in. Like he hadn't had a full, really healthy season. Now again, we'll talk about Baker in that, but and again, we got to give Deshaun actually a full season. This dude has not even had a full season with the Browns. Like he hasn't. When he's been in there, the team plays pretty well actually. If you look at the record, And
Yeah,
so
they
it's
were
very
4-1 in
confusing.
his starts
Like
this year.
his numbers didn't look great, but it's weird how like when he was there, they were winning. I don't get it. I haven't tried to figure it out, but it does hurt a little bit when the team that beats you is the team that you gave away like a basically a bank for. Um, it is just weird. It's just a weird feeling to get beat by that team that you were supposed to be better than, because this Texas team shouldn't even be here right now. But again, hats off to Texans, because the GM, the management, same with like the Lions, and I saw I put it on our Instagram story, but it said America's true uh, dream Super Bowl right now is Texans versus the Lions. Boy, would the liberals hate that in California. Wouldn't that be a great thing? But yeah, so yeah, hats off to the Browns. Again, we'll talk about Browns in the offseason. Obviously, we'll probably talk more about that and what's going to go happen there, as long as and draft stuff and all that when that comes along. But I think that's enough for the Browns. We can't dwell on what's there and move on from it.
Yeah, continuing on to the following games. Chiefs over the Dolphins. Uh,
Gosh, this was worse than
I
the Browns game.
I can't. Did you pick Miami in this one?
Mm,
I know I
I
picked
think I
KC.
did. I think I did. Yes, because I was just being like that oddball for some reason. Then I
You had
realized
to,
I
yeah,
hated
you
it.
had to be different because I think Bryce and I were both all about
You were.
Kansas City. Miami's record, and I can't remember exactly what it is when
It's
it's
Owen. It's
like
Owen. It's 0-6, I think, and underneath 20 something degrees.
yeah. I mean, playing all year in Florida like they do, it's these kind of games are always going to be a challenge for them. And I mean, it was the case once again. I mean, just looking at the way that they played football, they couldn't get the run game really going. They finished with less than 100 yards. A-Chain has 6 carries for 9 yards. Mostert's got 8 carries for 33 yards, and Tua's never a quarterback that I can really rely on or trust. And regardless if it's cold or just in these big playoff games yet, and he goes, 20 of 39, 199 yards, a touchdown and a pick. Meanwhile, on the flip side, I mean, Mahomes' stat line wasn't all that impressive, 262 yards through the air, a touchdown, no pick, but they were able to get somewhat of a run game going with Pacheco. He had 89 yards on the ground, and Edwards-Helaire
Just
added 21.
just not
But
confident with that offense, man. That Chiefs offense scares me. It's just not the same.
yeah, I don't know how I really feel about Kansas City as far as like Super Bowl prospects, but at least with this first game with Miami, Miami being at a disadvantage with their offense, not only in the cold but against teams above 500, they just don't get it
Yeah, they
done.
don't. Yeah.
And Kansas City's at least got some strength on the defensive side of the ball. So yeah, they outrushed Miami. It was 147-76 in this game, and Patrick Mahomes being the veteran that he is,
Also,
playing in several Super
-3.
Bowls. Yeah, yeah, brutal weather, but I felt like Kansas City was a little bit more built for a game like this, and 26-7 final score kind of said that.
Well, something also said that like they put a picture out or something that said like, and now Taylor realizes that the next game's not in KC, but it's in Buffalo. I just laughed. Like it's gonna be worse in Buffalo than KC.
And people have been pointing to that game that they played where Kadarius Toney got called for the offsides. That was the
Yeah,
difference between the
it
game being
was.
in Kansas City or in Buffalo.
It was.
So some people that might have been like, they're both going to be in the playoffs. It doesn't really matter anyway. It's like stupid mistakes like that, like being offsides,
It's huge.
can change, your
Yeah,
whole season's outcome or the trajectory of where you're going.
it's crazy.
Yeah. Not a whole lot to say outside of that though, but the other game that I think we probably have a lot of thoughts on is Dallas, Green Bay.
This was great. I love this, dude. You
Man,
you don't know how much, Josh, I like, because I have some Dallas Cowboy friends that they love Dallas Cowboys, and there's just something about seeing the Dallas Cowboys choke in the playoffs that just gives you a smile to your face. Like as a Browns fan, I know we've suffered a lot over the years, and I have friends that are Lions fans the same way. There's just something about the Cowboys, like their fans getting so hyped, like this is the year. We've got this. And then they lose their first team to ever lose the 7 seed. Just makes it so much sweeter. And the fact that everyone who counted out Love and said like he was going to be a bust, to do it against the Cowboys is just like all these things just put together is just it's phenomenal. I just love it. I really do.
there is a lot of stories to this one. So when we were talking about this game last week, I didn't give Green Bay any kind of chance
Neither did
whatsoever,
I.
but I did mention that Dallas has been on the wrong side of some blowouts too this season. Like they've blown some teams out, but they've also been blown out.
Yeah.
But I really thought that this year Dallas in the playoffs was going to be different. I really
Oh,
did.
I
I
did
thought
too.
that they finally got it all figured out, and turns out it's just the same old Dallas Cowboys, man. Dak even threw for over 400 yards and 3 touchdowns in this one, and it still wasn't enough. Because that
I
man,
think even the top 3 yardage in the playoff in this round, the top 3 quarterbacks with the yardage all lost, which just shows you can't just throw the ball and try to win.
well,
Like
sometimes
you,
too, if you got a lot of passing yards, because you didn't have a lot of rushing yards, and the
yes,
defense took the run out of it. So yeah, it's not always the best indicator. But Jordan Love, man, 16 to 21, 272 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Very, very similar game to
almost
what CJ
identical,
Stroud had.
which
Yeah,
is
very close.
creepy.
Yeah. Aaron Jones too had a nice game on the ground, 118 yards and three
Defense
touchdowns
played
there.
great.
But yeah, yeah, Green Bay just took care of business, man. And Jordan Love, um, I only know a couple Packers fans, but I reached out to them. It's like, so you guys, no regrets now on drafting Jordan Love in the first round instead of like T. Higgins or CD Lamb or some other receiver that you guys could have given Aaron Rodgers. And it seems like they're all
Well,
past that
if
now.
you
Jordan Love
remember,
is their guy, and they're all on board.
if you remember the McAfee show, you remember like the one dude that's on his show. He's like a big Packers fan. I don't know if you remember that draft night. He flipped. Like he was like acting like Mel Kiper, and he was just like livid because they didn't draft a receiver. And he goes like, in 20 years they've never drafted a dang receiver, like,
They'd never take receivers in the first round, and it
yeah.
was crazy
And he was
because they
so
just
mad.
seemed to never try to help Aaron Rodgers
No,
out
they didn't.
ever in any way,
But I
shape, or
think,
form.
but I do got to give them credit. I mean, it's kind of the same thing they did with Brett Favre, right? They brought in Aaron Rodgers, a guy that's like, why did you bring in a QB like that? Waited a few years, took over. It's the same thing with Jordan Love. For some reason, the Packers just find a way to do it. I don't know how they do it, but
It's
they just
exactly
do.
the same path. Yeah, this is obviously what Green Bay's plan was all along, is to give Aaron Rodgers a couple more seasons until eventually he was going to retire or request a
Go for the
trade is
money
what it ended up being. But Jordan Love was going to be the project that was going to sit, 3 or 4 years
and
behind
learn
him
from
and
the
then
best.
eventually take over as a starting quarterback. And it's honestly a path and a strategy that no teams really are willing to do
No,
anymore. It's like they draft a quarterback and they got to
it's like right
immediately be
away.
the starter
Yeah.
right now. And if they succeed or fail in that first year, dictates if they're going to be the starter again
Like if
next year.
Justin
And
Fields, like Justin Fields, like if Justin Fields would have someone to sit behind, I think it would be a different story for his first few years. Like these kind of
maybe,
QBs.
yeah.
Also, just want to point out about CJ Stroud, the first Ohio State quarterback to win a playoff game since 1993. Just going to let you know that it broke that streak. Finally,
Mm.
success happening. Dude, going back to Dak, question for you, Josh: is this the end of McCarthy? And is this the end of Dak in Dallas? Do
I
you feel
think
like we're at this point?
I think if it was, it would have already happened by now, right? Like
I mean,
Jerry's usually
maybe.
pretty quick with these kind of decisions.
Yeah. Like Bill Belichick, Dallas. That sounds like a fun matchup.
A fun matchup. Yeah, that's gonna be interesting, man. I don't think every coach really wants to even be with Jerry Jones all that much,
Yeah.
just because of how much control he really wants to have on the team.
They say he doesn't have that much control, and I'm like, dude, this dude's the general manager, president, and he's the owner. Like the dude just
I
it's
really think the
monopoly.
reason he rode with Jason Garrett as long as he did was because he was a yes guy that didn't really have any kind of like big ego, like past coaches like Jimmy Johnson and Bill Parcells would butt heads with that guy and he'd get rid of them. And I'm not sure that Mike McCarthy has all that big of a personality either
Yeah.
that's going to get in the way. So that could be what saves him, similarly to how Jason Garrett just stuck around in town as long as he did.
Yeah.
Um, which draft was Jordan Love in? 2020 or 2021?
2020, I believe. I think it was 2020. Yeah, I think it was the COVID year. Or it was 2019. 2020 maybe?
Let me check the 2020 draft. Yeah, because I'm going to see like what players were on the board that Green Bay could have taken instead of him. So yes, they took Jordan Love at the 26th pick, and I believe that's a pick. They had a higher pick initially that they traded back for out
Yeah,
of the first round, and then they traded back into the first round to
which
take
that's
this
what
guy.
everyone's like, oh, they're gonna get a receiver, and nope,
Yeah, we
Jordan
thought that they were
Love.
going to get a receiver because of who was still on the board. So if they hadn't traded back initially, I think that Justin Jefferson was still on the board, and I mentioned
Yeah, he
CeeDee
was.
Lamb and T. Higgins was in the second round, the first pick in the second round that they could have taken. But yeah, they go ahead and draft up and trade Jordan Love, and oh, and Brandon Ayuk was in this draft too. He went a couple picks ahead as well. Yeah, I mean, this was a loaded receiver draft, one of the most loaded we've seen in recent memory with everybody that
Yeah.
was getting picked off the board there. And yeah, to go with Love, it's like but no regrets anymore now. At least I think
No,
Green Bay is happy with the outcome, and they're going 9-8, winning the first game as a seventh seed, and
squeaked into the playoffs.
they got some young receiver talent around. Yeah, so Green Bay, I mean, it's looking up from here. Like
The NFC North, man. The NFC
they're gonna
North might
recover
be
from
the
this Aaron Rodgers trade, I think, just fine.
yeah, the NFC North becoming the domino over there.
Yeah, yeah, that division. Who knows, man? Speaking of that division, though, next game on board here, Lions and
I loved it.
Rams.
This game was so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch it, unfortunately,
I just
but
watched the highlights, but still.
okay. So yeah, it goes into
A lot of
halftime.
stories.
Detroit is up 21-17, and they go into the fourth quarter. It's still, only a 3-point game, and Rams kick a field goal to, cut it to one. But yeah, Detroit does hold on here. And yeah, there's all the storylines, obviously, of Goff and Stafford and how they were swapped. And a lot of people thought that the Rams might have had the hot hand come in this one. That was the camp I was in. Stafford was getting everything together, and they found a nice run game with Kyron Williams and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp were gonna, you know, be a solid receiver combo. And the Lions, while they're definitely on
They're
track
young.
for a solid future, still young and a little bit inexperienced in playoff football, but it doesn't matter, man. Yeah, Goff was 22 of 27, 227 yards, touchdown. No picks here in Montgomery. Gibbs each added a touchdown in the run game. Stafford played great too over on the other side, 367 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and Williams added 61 yards on the ground. Nakua had nearly 200 yards.
Oh, he was awesome.
Yeah,
That that
he
dude
put
that
on a
dude
show in that game.
that dude is a beast. I mean, that dude's going to be one of the top receivers in the NFL for years to come. He's a lot. He reminds me of like Marquise Colston. I mean, he's going to be better than him. But that same idea of like being a sixth, seventh round pick that's going to turn out to be just a steal. And I think did you see that video the NFL posted about like behind the scenes of behind the pick or whatever, and like how they were like wanting him in the sixth round? I was like, we're going to go get this guy. Um, but yeah, I think on top of that, Josh, I'm just so happy for the city of Detroit, man. Like, I know for Cleveland, like we went through that, obviously when the Cavs won the championship and then when the Browns made the playoffs, a couple years ago. But man, to see the GM, I don't know if you saw that video that I posted where he was just like screaming in the elevator, like just yelling. And I think that shows the city of Detroit, man. Like I really do. Like I think the only reason I have this kind of like, I guess kind of excitement for Detroit Lions is because like Josh, we were there with Cleveland, man. Like we were there for how many years that Cleveland could, and no matter what sport it was, win anything. And to see, the Browns make the playoffs in, 2020 and see the Cavs win it in 2016, like if you don't have a football team and you're just like trying to pick a team, the Detroit Lions is the team you pick. Dan Campbell is doing a phenomenal job.
Love Dan Campbell.
The way he like, to be honest, he's the most like down to earth person, and like that's what I love. Like I love that's why I like Stefanski. That's why I like him. Like they just care about their players and they care about like the culture. Like I think we're missing that in the NFL now. It's not about culture anymore, and I think Dan Campbell's like, dude, it's either you come my way or the highway. Like, it's either you do it this way or you don't play for us. And I'm seeing like Taylor Decker, who's been there for what, like 10 years now. And he's just crying like what the emotions are. And even Stafford coming back. Like, it was just a phenomenal game. And hats off to Detroit. And I'll be honest, no one wants to play the Detroit Lions right now. There is no one that wants to play them. This team is a very dangerous team. And would not be shocked me if you saw the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl. I'm just going to say that now.
Yeah, the other thing that I think really proved to be a difference to the game here is the Rams were 0 for 3 in the red zone.
Yes.
Detroit, on the other hand, 3 for 3 scoring.
Mm-hmm.
So got to cash in on those opportunities when you're in the red zone.
Yep. Absolutely.
Moving on to Buffalo and Pittsburgh. I don't think most people were shocked by this outcome.
The amount of snow that was shoveled for this game.
Yeah, I did pick Pittsburgh to win this one. I thought that if it was going to be as crazy of a snow game as what they were anticipating, that could be an equalizer. But yeah, the field looked pretty clear. So Josh Allen was able to do his thing, and he continued to stay hot and torch this Pittsburgh defense. That was TJ Wattless, and
yeah, missed
Pittsburgh.
tackle, those missed tackles on Josh Allen were just very obvious of like the season of the Steelers. Just was like very obvious on that scramble play. Like, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, what'd you think of that one run that he had? People are saying it was a fake slide, or some people are saying that it's just Josh
No,
Allen being big and like
no,
slow
I
at
mean,
adjusting his feet. And
no, I mean, if you look at the play, like, and that's the play I'm talking about, like they couldn't tackle him. Like, look, if okay, whether it's a fake slide or not, the dude is like making a slow cut. Like you should be able to tackle him. There's four Pittsburgh Steelers around him. Like you can't say it's a fake slide. Like I've seen the NFL. They don't even care when they slide. Look at Joe Flacco. He went to slid and the guy still drilled him. Right. Like I don't think it was a fake slide. I think they still would have been a guy that would have dove or like whatever. I think it was just the fact that he just deked them that bad, or the fact that he's 250 pounds and no one wants to actually hit him when he's putting his head down. That's the other thing. Because if you look, he kind of put his head down like this, and like as he was going to go take someone with him, and then he just like, oh, no one's going to tackle me. I'll just cut it up. So I think that's what happened. To be honest with you.
yeah, I don't think it was a fixed slide either. I think he's just really slow at cutting because he's a quarterback
And
and,
also, it
like you
was
said, 250
slippery. It was
pounds.
like ice. Like, what is he? He doesn't want to tear any ACLs or anything.
Yeah, they still had an opportunity to tackle him on that play though and didn't.
Also, but like people don't realize, like, dude, 250 pounds, like Will Howard, who's going to play at Ohio State, is actually about the same size as Josh Allen. So if you want to, Ohio State fans, if you want to see like what you're kind of not saying he's going to be Josh Allen, but like that kind of size and speed. And it's just funny when Josh Allen, like he was running, it was like the Steelers didn't want to tackle him. You know what I mean? Like even like when you're playing backyard football and there's that big kid and you're like, nah, I'm good. Like that's what it seemed like. They were just like, I think I'm good on this. But like the Steelers missed tackles all game though. There was that one play by that slot receiver. He caught it and then like spinned out of a tackle and then took it in for an end touchdown. I was just like, how do you miss these tackles? It's just, I don't know, man. It's just the Steelers should have been in the playoffs in the first place. Sorry, I'm just gonna be honest. Like that team, that was not a playoff team. Like if you look at that team, that just wasn't. They
Yeah,
were
they
just
just somehow
they were
won 10
just,
games.
and the fact that Mike Tomlin's coming back is just bizarre to me. It
Yeah,
truly
they ain't had
is.
enough of them yet.
Goodness, ridiculous, but
I've
is what it is.
finally been. We wrap it up Monday night with Bucks and Eagles.
Yes,
I think we all flirted with the idea of picking Tampa Bay in this
we
one
did
because of how cold the Eagles had come into this one, but we also weren't totally convinced that Tampa Bay was coming into this hot enough that it was gonna
because they had a
make a
rough game. Yeah,
difference.
they had a rough game
Yeah,
on week last week
yeah, beating Carolina only 9-0, like the 2-win Carolina Panthers is like that's what you're coming
without
off
benching
of.
anybody. Without
Yeah,
benching anybody.
right. So they were in a must-win game there and they win 9-0. But yeah, the Eagles, man, is
Sorry, Bryce. Sorry, we got to talk about this.
yeah. Whether it was Bryce's actual Super Bowl pick or not, we
Yeah,
don't know.
I love how he
But
didn't claim it. I was like, okay, all right, I see how it is.
yeah, but yeah, in this one it was just first off, let's give some flowers to Baker Mayfield in
Oh,
this one
dude,
because
hats off, man.
3 touchdowns, 337 yards passing in this one on his fourth team in the league.
How do you think he's feeling, man? Like honestly,
Oh
like how do
yeah.
you think he's feeling after that game? Going, everyone doubted me. Like everyone said that I wasn't worth it in Cleveland. And man, like I think there was a lot
Even
of
before the
people.
season, they're talking about is it going to be him or Kyle Trask
Yeah.
starting? Is Tampa
Well,
Bay going to be in the running for one of the first few picks in
how,
this draft?
how many people do you think are in Cleveland that are like, dang it, you see? Like I think there's a lot of people in Cleveland that still love the guy. I really do. I think there's a lot of Cleveland Browns fans that love the guy, and
I think so,
it's good to
man.
see.
Like honestly, his full body of work was 4,400 or 4,044 yards, which I believe is a career high. 28 touchdown passes, I
Career
believe, is a
high.
career high. Both of those ranked top 10 in the league. Only 10 interceptions, which we've seen Baker be a pick machine in the past, and only 10
It's
this
not bad.
season. So Baker Mayfield, that was my whole thing with him in Cleveland is like he's not going to be a guy that you can count on to win you games like by himself, like those Aaron Rodgers or I mean even CJ Stroud kind of looks like he has some of those kind of intangible traits. But if you can get guys around him, like he's got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin over there, and he's got Todd Bowles, who I think can be a good coach.
Well,
But
tell me this: do you think if you swap Joe Flacco with Baker Mayfield, do the Buccaneers win this playoff game, and or do the Browns win their playoff game?
I mean, if this is how bad the Eagles were coming in this one, I think maybe even uh, let's just say if Joe Flacco doesn't throw two pick sixes in this game, I think Tampa Bay is still winning it. But
But if you
I
put
think
Baker on the Browns, what do you think it changes things?
if we have Baker on the Browns, yeah, it's tough to say because I mean the defense still had a lot of issues in that one, but it's a
Yeah.
much closer game. we're seeing a much closer game over there. I think we're seeing different results for sure.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to root for Baker Mayfield as I have been.
Agreed.
I want to see him succeed outside of here. And I'm not going to go like full blown Tampa Bay Bucks fan, but was nice to see him be able to get that.
Yeah, and the Eagles, man, the Eagles just, they just don't look the
Something
same.
happened, man.
And
Something
also,
happened around week 10 or week 11 or whatever it
the
was.
whole firing their head coach thing, that's a little extreme, I think. Like, the dude did take you to a Super Bowl last year. Kind of seems extreme to
And
just
then
go.
won 11 games this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a little extreme. And then Jason Kelsey came out on his podcast today and was like, okay, I sort of retired, but I didn't. Like, he didn't deny that he retired, but he also didn't say that, like, he is retired. So I don't really know what to make of it. I posted on our Instagram, like, hey, he's retired.
Is he more so saying like maybe there will be an opportunity
Well,
to
he
come
said,
back
like,
later
well, no, he said
after
something
maybe
like,
a year sitting out?
basically described it was like, oh, like it was an emotional thing. Like I wasn't going to actually like, say this like in front of them after an emotional game. And I would, think about it, choose the right time on my time. But then I'm like, then how did like Adam Schefter and like half of the, reporters all come out and say that this was said in the locker room? So to me, there's either someone has leaked something and he's just like trying to like cover it up so it can be on his, his schedule.
Yeah.
But I just don't see him coming back. That man, the emotional side of him that came out on Sunday, that to me showed someone that's like done. You know what I mean? Like just someone that's like, I don't want to do this anymore. At least that's from my perspective.
Yeah, he very well could be. Or if he is retiring, maybe he
Best
can
center of
come
all
back
time.
later after. Yeah, I don't know enough about centers to be able to say that or
Dude,
not, but
some
I
of
think he's
those
got
clips,
6 first team All Pros and 7
yeah.
Pro Bowls.
Dude, that one clip. Do you
Definitely
remember
got
the clip where he stiff armed the one dude and then just leveled the other dude as he's like blocking the guy with one arm? That stuff's just remarkable to me. Just like what he can do.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a talented player there. Jalen Hurts in this one too. Only 1 carry for 5
Rough,
yards.
dude. He's rough, man.
Passing wise, it looked about like a typical like Jalen Hurts passing stat line, but yeah, only the 1 rush, and Philly was 0 for 9 on 3rd down in this one, 0 for 2 on 4th. So
Yeah,
they were going first and second. If they weren't getting it done at first, second down, they weren't getting it done.
no. And again, I think that I think that also the Bucks were just a little bit hotter, and I think now, do I think the Bucks can go make a run at the Super Bowl? Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
I think their defense is not that good. I really don't. And I think Baker is, as much as I love Baker and what he's done, he's very streaky, and we both know that. Like Baker can go on like 2 or 3 game streak where he's just like the best QB in football, or he can go on a 2 to 3 game streak where you're like, what are we doing with him again?
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Baker.
Speaking of Bucks, and you mentioned nobody wants to play Detroit Lions right now. That is who the Bucks got to play.
That would be an interesting game, to be honest with you. That's gonna be a really like weird game, kind of a fascinating game.
That's happening at 3 o'clock on Sunday. It'll be at Detroit, obviously.
To be honest, I think Detroit likes this, having to face the Bucks. I think they like this a little bit more than the Eagles.
Oh heck yeah, man! Like if you get to face where were the Bucks? Were the Bucks a 7th seed? They went to 7th seed Green Bay, but yeah, they were 4 seed because they did win a division. Yeah, but they were a 9-win team just like Green Bay. Yeah, in a crappy division. Yeah, so yeah, so let's talk about that game first since we're already kind of on that. It's not one of the Saturday games, but Detroit and Tampa Bay. I am kind of leaning Detroit in this one just because of what you had said. Baker can be streaky, and it's tough to get streaky in the playoffs when you got to continue to play good teams every single week. And it's at Ford Field. Yeah, I'm leaning Detroit right now, but it is the NFL, and it can go either way. I'm trying not to like overreact too much to what we saw in some of these games, just because I know it could be the complete opposite the next week. So I'm gonna keep a level head here, and I mean the Lions and the Rams I thought was a toss up given what both teams have been going through, and the Lions clearly showed that they got some poise despite how young they are, and they can get it done in the red zone as we know it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick Detroit here. And I think I'll give you a score. I'm going to give you a score so that your final score can't influence mine. Yes. Give me 27 for Detroit, 27 points for Detroit, and give me no, I'll be a little more respectful in that. 20 for the Bucks, 27-20 final.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I had a terrible record last week, so I don't know what I'm doing to even guesstimating what's going on. No, but I do feel very confident about the Lions. I kind of doubted them all year. Like, is this for real? For real? And then this past week, it just showed me like this team is ready. Dan Campbell has them ready, and to me, like I think, I mean, Sam Laporta he's done for the year, correct? I'm pretty sure.
I
Which,
don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I know he was injured with his knee, but no, this is the thing though. Baker. This is the thing. I'm like worried to go against Baker because I did this last week and then I got kind of screwed by it. So I don't know where, but to be honest with you, I do agree with you. I think the Lions come out on top. Um, I think the Lions going to win though. I'm going to give it a little more of a scoring kind of
By the way,
game.
Sam Laporta was a full participant in practice today.
Oh, okay. So then that's a huge benefit for them. I'm going to go Lions 35, Bucks 27. I'm going to go 35-27
Okay.
Lions.
About an extra score for each team, that is what you're going with. But winning by 8 for you, winning by 7 for me. Got it. We'll just continue with Sunday's game then. So this is the Chiefs at the Bills.
Oh,
Both
this one's a
teams that
tough
have
one, dude. They're both so
that's a tough
inconsistent.
one. We've seen them
They're
we've seen
both
them
so
match up a
inconsistent
lot. Yes.
this year.
We've seen them match up in the playoffs before. We've seen them match up this regular season before. We know how close that game was. We mentioned the offsides penalty from Kadarius Toney basically being the difference maker there. Um, Buffalo has been, I'd say, having more of the hot hand lately.
Yeah, I
Given, I
agree.
mean, there was a handful of weeks ago where it was looking like they might miss the playoffs entirely, but
I think they started
after
like
they
what
made
was
that
it? 7? Was it 6-5? Yeah, I think it was 6-5. And they've went.
after they made that change of
Yeah,
play caller, dude, it's totally been a different offense, man. Josh Allen's looking good.
Joe
And
Brady.
and
Joe Brady's a legit offense coordinator, and I don't know why he's been just bounced around the league after he left LSU because this dude can literally call plays, and he's phenomenal at it.
for sure. Yeah, it's tough because the Bills have never given me a reason in the playoffs really to believe in them. But this is, I think, the worst version of the Kansas City Chiefs we've ever seen too. But it's a
Mm.
different kind of like style Kansas City team. It's almost like Ohio State's identity change, where they've
Yeah,
been the team that can score a lot and the defense is mid or sucks. And now it's like they got a team that they can kind of rely on their defense a little bit more. And they got a quarterback with experience in the playoffs, and they got a running game that is serviceable. And at least Buffalo right now, Vegas is saying is a 3-point favorite here, but I my gut tells me to pick the Chiefs, but I hate that. I hate that. I don't believe in Kansas City. I don't want to see them win any more games, but I think I got to do it. I think I got to
score.
do
Then
it.
you better give me a score, or else I'll change your score.
I'm going Kansas City 24-21.
Interesting. Um, I'm with you. Like my gut tells me Kansas City because I just think that like this is like where Patrick Mahomes thrives in these situations. But
Hmm.
again, Taylor Swift is a part of the Kansas City Chiefs, and so that obviously means that I'm going to go opposite. No, that's not the reason, but no. Generally, I just the Bills at home are so tough to beat, like especially in the cold. And I know the Chiefs play in the cold, but like something about the snow, if it does snow again, like this whole like just the atmosphere that Buffalo brings, it's really phenomenal. And I think I'm gonna go Buffalo Bills. I'm gonna go 31. No, Buffalo Bills 24, Kansas City Chiefs 17. I'm gonna say the
Mm,
Bills come out on top and go back to the AFC Championship game.
gotcha, man. Yeah, that's probably the game that I'm the most up in the air about out of all of these. But those are Sunday's games. It does start up on Saturday though, with the Texans and the Ravens. And the Ravens were my Super Bowl pick, and just because what I saw from Kansas City last week against the Browns, I mean, I I think it'll be a more fun game than what we anticipated.
Oh
But
yeah, it would be really fun.
I'm still going like hard Baltimore lean here, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say a two-score Baltimore win right here. Like I said, all the reasons that I love them are still there. They led the country in rushing yards and sacks and point differential and forced turnovers. And CJ Stroud is still young, man. Like that's a great way to start off your NFL career and your playoff career and whatnot. But I think Baltimore's built this year's Baltimore Ravens are built for games like this. And I'm going to go ahead and say that Baltimore is going to come out here with a 35-24 victory.
Very good. Very good. As a Browns fan, as someone who chose the Browns to go to the Super Bowl, I really have nothing in this game. There's the part of me that just hates the Ravens. I just don't want to see them succeed. But there's also part of me that knows the Ravens are so much better than pretty much every team right now in the AFC. But then there's that inkling of me that just sees how CJ Stroud shows up in the biggest games at the biggest time. And DeMeco Ryans somehow has got this team clicking. I'm going to say it's going to be a game-winning field goal, not kicked by Tucker of the Ravens, but kicked by the Houston Texans. And I'm going to say Texans win this game in a close one, 27-24. Houston Texans versus the Buffalo Bills in the AFC Championship game. CJ Stroud cementing himself as one of the best QBs in the NFL.
You know what? It can happen. We've seen some of these wild card teams, these fringe wild card teams, like when Aaron Rodgers won a Super Bowl with the Packers, it was one of those situations where they had to win like 5 of their last 6 games just to be the final seed, like the 6th seed, and they go on and beat Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl. And we've seen, the Titans didn't make the Super Bowl, but they were like a 9-7 like last seed, and they made it to the AFC Championship game, and they ended Tom Brady's career in New England. By the way,
it's a one game season from now on. You're better than that. If you're better, you could be the worst team. If you're better in that one game, you make that chance.
And it's not like CJ Stroud, this is the stat that everybody's been pointing to. CJ Stroud already has as many touchdowns in the playoffs as Lamar Jackson has had, and Lamar's played 4 games.
Exactly.
So it's not like Lamar is exactly this playoff superstar performer
and
either.
The Ravens, when they face decent offenses, especially passing offenses, they're not always tremendously great. They're great against the run. They're always been great against the run. But the Texans don't really run the ball. They're like, we're going to throw it down your throat, and you got to stop us.
Yeah. Like I said, though, I think that I'm not going to read too much into what Houston did to Cleveland. I think that those were 2 teams that were just kind of happy to be there given what their preseason expectations were and what they had to do within the season. And Baltimore is this is a different Baltimore team, I think, a little bit more built for games like this. But similar situation here on the other end. We got the 1 seed in the NFC, San Francisco 49ers, playing against a team that nobody expected to be here either, the 7 seed Green Bay Packers. This is also just like that Baltimore game. San Francisco's coming into this as a 9-point favorite right here at home. And San Francisco was my pick out of the NFC. And this was even me assuming that they're going to have to play the Dallas Cowboys. And it's a pick that I'm obviously going to stick with here. I'm going to continue to ride with the San Francisco 49ers just because all that talent on the roster is just super hard to ignore. I also think that their defense isn't going to let Jordan Love get away with as much as what Dallas's defense did. This is a game that I'm going to go ahead and say San Francisco covers that 9 points. I don't know if they score as much as Baltimore, though. So I will give the 49ers 31, and I will give Green Bay 17.
Interesting.
31-17, yeah.
I think the 49ers defense is phenomenal. I think their offense is very good as well. Again, if Purdy's playing on his level, they're tremendous. I'm going to also say they're going to cover. I think it's going to be I'm going to say 49ers 35. I'm going to say the Packers 17. I think there's going to be a point where it's close, and then you're going to start seeing the 49ers kind of stretch this game out. It's going to end up being a blowout by the end.
Yeah, if you're Green Bay, like, what a heck of a season. You had to win your last 3 regular season games to get this spot. You beat the Panthers 33-30. You beat the Vikings 33-10. You beat the Bears 17-9. You squeak your way in here, and then you get this big win over the Dallas Cowboys. Like, you are well on your way. But
exactly,
this is the San Francisco 49ers, and they've been one of the best teams in the NFC for quite a while now. Basically, every year Kyle Shanahan's been the head coach over there. They've been in that mix, and everybody's healthy right now, and they got all that talent over there that they've just accumulated and built up. And I don't think the 49ers are going away. Not this
Oh yeah,
week.
for sure. For sure.
So yeah, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at some well, I'm looking at least a Baltimore Kansas City AFC championship and a San Francisco Detroit Lions NFC matchup. I think any kind of matchup we get though is going to be fun regardless though.
Oh, for sure. 1000%.
Well, that's a wrap on the NFL. We haven't seen any new head coaching hires. We've seen Jim Harbaugh hired it or interviewed a few places. We've seen Antonio Pierce interviewed a few
Bill
places.
Belichick.
Bill Belichick is interviewed in a few places, but nothing set in stone yet. But
Browns fired coaches.
yeah, the Browns a couple fired assistants there. But since I just mentioned Jim, yeah, he's been making his way around the NFL, but Michigan's also trying to work out a new contract with him. But
Did you hear about
right
this?
now,
Yeah.
the holdup is that Jim Harbaugh does not want to be
Stupid.
fired if any sanctions get laid down on
You know,
Michigan for this investigation.
can, can I say something, Josh? This is what I want to
Say
say.
something. I think we're going to disagree on this,
This is
but
what I
go
want to say.
ahead.
Jim Tressel, right? Whatever happened, obviously with the tattoo gate, right? He owned up to it. He took the punishment, right? The punishment was like, hey, you're going to be let go. This is what it is. Other coaches, same thing. They've kind of taken the punishment or they've moved to the NFL, right? If you move to the NFL, you go kind of like the Carroll situation. Like, let's be honest, he would have stayed at USC. He probably would have gotten fired or suspended for a very, a lot of amount
Oh
of
yeah.
time. So to me, I just think it's very petty. Like, it's just kind of like, hey, like, dude, if you're really wanting that, then just go to the NFL. Like, teams are dying to have you, and or walk off in the sunset, man. You won your championship. You brought Michigan. You're the Michigan man. That sort of thing. Again, this is me just kind of like, look, I saw with Jim Tressel and like how Jim Tressel kind of took it as like, look, like I kind of like my hands are tied. If I keep staying here, I'm going to face the penalty of either getting fired or just dealing with all this garbage for the next, a few years. And it's just weird to me. Again, that's just my opinion. I just think it's a little weird that you're trying to have immunity. Like I get like saying like, hey, I'll stay for 2 years or whatever, but immunity from anything, a little weird. A little weird. I don't know.
I think it's completely reasonable because Michigan benefited from this national championship run.
Oh yeah,
And let's
yeah,
just say
sure.
things get found out, and that even if they don't get found out, and the NCAA still decides to be the NCAA and try to flex any kind of muscle that they got and lay something down on Michigan, some kind of punishment, whether it's vacated wins or suspensions on coaches or loss of scholarships or whatnot, and then Michigan decides, you know what? We're going to fire the guy that ran this whole operation, even though we got to benefit with the national championship and all the money that we made from all the TV ratings and the the playoff wins and whatnot. And Jim's over here saying, no, screw that. If I'm going down, we're all going down.
Yeah, yeah.
So I totally understand that. Just like when Urban Meyer initially got hired at Ohio State, Gene Smith told him, we're not going to have any punishment from this tattoo gate that you're going to have to deal with. We're not going to have any kind of bowl ban or lost a scholarship or anything like that. And then Urban takes the job and then has to deal with that his first season or a couple seasons there. And it's like, well, what the heck, man?
Yeah.
But
No, I get what you're
and then
saying. No,
Pete,
I get what you're
yeah,
saying.
but I think Jim obviously wants to go to the NFL. He's taken Michigan in like up to this point, and now he's like a hot name now,
He's
and
also
he's
he's
getting
also looking
interviews with
what's happening next year with his team and going,
yeah, like Michigan
eh.
is not going to be the same Michigan team, and if he can get an offer in the NFL, I think he's going to take it. It's just a matter of if he will get one, because last year he didn't get anything, and then he came
I do
back.
think this year is more possible. I do really think this year there's more of a chance.
Yeah,
I think so.
and I think if he gets that chance, he's absolutely taking it.
Yeah, and like even David Cohn, we were texting David Cohn, and David Cohn even said, like, I asked him, I said, what's the percentage that he leaves, or like, well, what's your thoughts? And he said 70% leave. So David Cohn, a guy who loves Michigan, diehard Michigan guy, obviously, he even thinks it's 70% that Jim Harbaugh leaves.
Yeah, and I think what really pushes that 70% is the intent to get out of there.
Yeah.
Like if it was up to him, he'd be out, but
Well,
it's
like
just a
like if
matter
you
of if an
want, listen,
NFL
if you
team would
wanted
give
to
it.
stay, he would have negotiated this contract kind of behind the scenes. They would have signed it, maybe 2 or 3 days after the national championship game, and he's there. Right. Like it's
Yeah.
weird that he's taking all these interviews. If he's really wanting to stay at Michigan, then he would just stay. It's kind
Steve
of that old
Sarkisian's
concept.
already worked out an extension. I think Mike Norvell and Dan Lane have all worked out extensions. Like Michigan, and I think the other thing too about it is that Jim Harbaugh butts heads with Michigan's AD and Ward Manuel, I think is his name, and that dude just
They don't
gives
do
off
they don't
like
do
the
NIL either.
yeah, well not as much as everybody else does. Yeah, they were kind of one of those teams that were like,
They're like
what
Clemson.
the heck is what the heck? Why aren't you like getting involved in this? At least Ohio State, like they didn't really want to do anything, but people cared enough like outside of the university to
They
start
just started
collectives and
themselves.
stuff. Yeah. I don't know if Michigan has anything like that right now. I know like some of the guys like JJ McCarthy and Blake Corum went out of their way to like make NIL, like not from an NIL collective, but from side businesses and camps that they run and stuff like that. And which is what I think NIL should have been anyways. But that's a whole other conversation that we can save for another
Which I
day.
think we should talk about in the offseason. Like, how should NIL change? Because I think that it is causing a lot of rift in a lot of places.
Maybe, yeah, a discussion for another day. But speaking of NIL, we got some moves that might have happened because of some NIL deals. Cam Ward transfers out of the
So
NFL
weird,
draft
dude.
and decides to go to Miami,
Just weird, man.
which he's able to do because he never signed an agent.
Which I think what happened was, let me play you what I think happened. He went to go, he got his draft grade originally, probably was like third or fourth. Then maybe like as he declared, there was like more chatter that was like, dude, you might be a fifth or sixth, maybe. And then I'm thinking he's going, wait a minute, if I get drafted late round, I make about 300K. If I just stay in some Southern SEC or ACC school, man, I could make triple that. Oh, well, duh. That's what we've been saying the whole time there, bud. Like,
Yeah, he's not gonna get. He didn't get the 2 million. I think that
wanted from
they
Ohio State.
reported that he wanted.
Yeah,
Yeah, from somebody. But I think for Miami, man, freaking slam dunk, dude. You lose
yeah.
Tyler Van Dyke, and you're probably gonna have to start a freshman quarterback this first year, or not this first year, but this next year. But I love it, man. Cam Ward's a guy that you can plug right in right now. Miami's been recruiting well these first 2 years under Mario Cristobal, and I've been saying that the Mario's third year is really when we can, I think, expect to see Miami take that next step, and I think Cam Ward's going to help them do
And
that.
in a weak ACC, a very weak ACC.
A weaker ACC, right? Yeah, we're going to see what Florida State's going to field next year
Clemson's going to be
after
rough.
all these starters that have left, and yeah, Clemson's looking rough.
North
What they win
Carolina's
only
gonna,
7 or 8 games,
yeah,
and
North Carolina's going to be
North Carolina's losing
disaster.
Drake. Duke will be interesting with Manny Diaz taking over and getting Malik Murphy to fill in at quarterback since Riley Leonard left. We'll see if Louisville can maintain what they've built. Virginia Tech is kind of on the up, but
Stanford, California.
true, they will be a new team over in that conference, and I'm sure they're looking forward to winning 3 games instead of two. But man, yeah, Miami, dude, I like the move. Whether they
Yeah,
had to drop a bag to get Cam Ward or not, it's legal, and
yeah, true.
it's what you got to do today sometimes. But that's Cam Ward. Other transfer portal moves, not necessarily destinations have been picked yet, but we're seeing the floodgates open in Alabama now.
Yeah.
As much as we love the Kalen DeBoer hire, a lot of people I think went to Alabama for
Nick
the Nick
Saban
Saban
experience.
program. Yeah, the Nick Saban experience, right? And now they can't get it at any school. So we do know that Caden Proctor and Caleb Downs, two of
Oh,
one of
please come to Ohio State.
Alabama's best recruiting classes of all time, both starters this last year, and both now up for grabs.
Please come to Ohio
Proctor
State.
Proctor initially was going to go to Iowa, and I don't know if that's where he's going to end up deciding to go. But I know like Georgia and Ohio State and some of those other big schools were in the Caleb Downs sweepstakes,
Yes.
and I think since you brought up Ohio State, I think that Downs is probably the more flashy name right now, but I think Proctor is going to fill a much bigger need if you can only pick one. Obviously, if you can get both, that's
Yeah.
incredible. I don't think
No,
they'll get both
no,
though.
I agree. I think Proctor's one of those things where like, so if you guys don't know, Ohio State has the three left sides figured out. You have Simmons, you have Jackson, and you have the transfer from Alabama. And that also might help. You have a transfer from Alabama, you get Proctor in there. Again, Ohio State it was down to the wire between Ohio State, Iowa, and Alabama. Like those are the three schools that not much as much Ohio State later in the cycle. Early in the cycle, yes, but he ended up kind of saying, I don't really want to go to Ohio State, which is weird. Um, But Caleb Downs is the one where it was down to Alabama and Ohio State. And he chose Alabama partly because I think Ohio State's defense was struggling at the time when he was getting recruited, and I think he was kind of unsure. The only thing I'm worried about now is like Georgia just took the guy that recruited him to Alabama. So the chances of Ohio State getting him are like
Yeah, that was a good hire.
very, very low. Um, I love Kirby Smart and the fact that he was just like a vulture and was just like, okay, Nick Saban's retiring. I'm just going to steal every quality coach that he had on his roster. I'm going to take him. But no, if you out of those two, I do think that Proctor is the maybe more likely and the more needed one. I think you put him at right tackle, you have your right tackle figured out, and you could move Fryer around or whatever. But Caleb Downs, though, I mean, like what he can do in the return game, he was fourth in the SEC in tackles. Like the dude's really good. But if Ohio State somehow landed both of them, oh my. Like already the talent of Ohio State has come back. You add those to the room. I mean, that's just like rich getting richer at that point. But no, Alabama. Look, I'm going to say it now. I know it's January. There's a chance, Josh, that Alabama wins like 7 games next year, like 7 or 8 games. Like there's a chance.
7 games.
I mean, I'm not saying they will, but like with the guys exiting, the quality, the starter guys that are exiting, they're losing receivers. Like it's just to me, it's just like, I know you have Jalen Milroe, but we saw what happens when you kind of have to rely on him. Yeah, there's a chance maybe they only pull eight wins out, maybe 9.
This is the schedule that they got to work with next year. So they got Wisconsin out of conference.
That's gonna be a
They
tough game
do
actually.
they do have Georgia cross division, which almost never
Brutal.
happens. They obviously got the matchups with Tennessee. Missouri is also a cross division game.
Gonna be a tough game as well.
LSU, as always, tough one. They got to go at Oklahoma this year, new team in the SEC, and they end the season with Auburn.
Tell me I'm wrong, Josh. Tell me I'm wrong. There's a chance
It's
they only win
freaking
8 games.
tough, dude. It's freaking tough over here right now. And yeah, we're gonna ultimately have to wait for the dust to settle to
Just
see
see
who's
who
all
stays.
still there.
Yeah, who stays?
Because Alabama, we were saying it before the season started, as far as like recruiting rankings go, the last 3 years have been incredible for Nick Saban. Like some of those classes have been some of the strongest ones they've had
Problem
in
is now they're not
program
keeping
history.
him.
Like the reason Alabama's gone down is not from a lack of talent acquisition. It's because he hasn't been hiring enough
Well, he changes
good
coaches
quality
every year.
coaches.
He
He
changes
has to
coaches every
because
year.
every time he hires somebody, they look good and then someone pulls them away. And he's always able to get somebody good to fill them in until recently. And I think the epitome of that was when he had to hire Kevin Steele and Tommy Rees to be his coordinators.
Oh,
After having guys like Lane Kiffin come through and Steve Sarkisian come through and Bill O'Brien and Brian Dayball and Kirby Smart even. And it's like you've had all these guys come through and then you fill in with Tommy Rees and Kevin Steele. But yeah, once the dust settles, you filled in people a little bit on Caleb Downs' recruitment. Caden Proctor, remember, he actually took less NIL money to go to Alabama because ultimately development is what he cared about the most and thought that Alabama
because a lot of people thought he
develops
was going to
offensive linemen
Iowa.
better.
A lot of people thought he was going to go to Iowa.
Yeah.
Like Iowa's
I
putting
was
all the money. They were putting all the money in the pot and saying like, take whatever you want. We want to keep you here.
I was one of those teams that does great at recruiting offensive linemen too. And I know Ohio State, they're talking about Fry maybe being gone here, but I don't know.
No, I think Fry stays. I audibly think Fry stays. I mean, I think you got to give him one more year. He's been here, I think, 2 years now. I think you give him one more year, kind of give him a full development cycle and see what happens with some of those guys he's had in his room for a while.
Yeah. Dude's got to get his crap together, but I mean, Caden Proctor can help you look a little bit better as an offensive line coach, I think, regardless. But development is on Proctor's mind, I know. So that could factor into whether he decides to go to Ohio State or not.
Exactly.
Or Iowa or anywhere. Maybe there's other teams that he can consider now.
I've also heard Wisconsin is, and like that would actually be a pretty
that's
cool
another
fit.
offensive lineman factory too. Wisconsin. There hasn't been any other big like enters into the portal, right? Or any new acquisitions for anybody. I know
Not
Evan
really.
Stewart. I don't think we've talked about Evan Stewart leaving Texas A&M and going to Oregon.
We didn't really
That
talk
was
about
one of their 5 stars that they
we didn't
got.
really talk about Judkins either going to Ohio State. We really didn't touch on it too much. I mean, that's a big one, I think, for Ohio State. And Travion coming back. I think that's the combination there. Travion coming back and Judkins. I mean, that gives you a 2-headed monster that, as Joel Klatt said, might be the best in the country.
Yeah. I thought there was There was a quarterback that just
Well, I
made a
mean,
move, I thought.
well, I know that not Will Howard, the former quarterback at Mississippi State transferred to Washington. Now he's back in the portal.
Oh, right.
So,
Yeah, that was the one that I
yeah,
was thinking of. Yeah, Will Rogers. Now that
so he's back in the
but
portal.
that actually just remembered or made me remember Jed Fish is taking over at Washington,
Yeah,
which slam
and
dunk hire there, I
and
think.
Arizona supposedly going to keep both their starting quarterback and starting receiver. They're number one, which I thought was
Yes.
very shocking to me. I thought for sure they were going to Washington. I
Yeah.
thought for
Those
sure.
those guys are, I think, in it because they want to build something in Arizona. And
Yeah,
I think Arizona hired San Jose's head
yeah, which
coach.
was weird hire to me. But I know he's been there before. I
It's
know he coached
Arizona, and
there.
they don't really care about football. I mean, that's the whole reason Jed Fish left is because the contract extension was not a big concern to Arizona, even though Jed Fish took over a winless team and then made them a 10-win team in his third season. It's like, why wouldn't you want that guy to stick around?
Yeah,
But yeah, it goes over to Washington. I think that's a good replacement for Kalen DeBoer over there. Jed Fish has shown that even if all these guys end up transferring because Kalen DeBoer's not over there, he's not worried because he's taking a team that's won 0 games and won 10 games with them in a few seasons.
yeah, yeah,
So good hire over there. Oh, some of the other ones that I had forgotten that I remember now. Robbie Ashford, one of the quarterbacks at Auburn that saw some time, is going over to South Carolina now.
yep, 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 yep.
And Talia Tagovailoa
Got
will not be able to
denied.
choose
Thank
his
you.
next team.
Dude, the NCAA finally did something right, Josh. They finally got it right. They finally said, "Hey, yeah, you played 5 games your freshman year. Yeah, that you're not going to just get because you played 20 snaps. Like that not how it works there, Tulia."
The only thing I hate about it is that they already let like 100 other guys do this, and then it's like, well, what was different about his situation? Why now are you slamming the door?
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I just do think they got it right though. Like I think if this is the rule and I think this is what they should stand by for all of the players.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another quarterback that is not in the portal anymore, for any team that's looking for one. So I think that covered all the bases for
Yeah.
college football, but we can talk about JJ McCarthy going to the NFL. That's a move that I thought we would maybe wait and we'd have to wait and see what Jim Harbaugh decides. But I think on one end, I'm not shocked. I wasn't going to be shocked either way because on one hand, I think JJ is a team guy. I love the story of Ohio State passing him up for Kyle McCord and him going to Michigan and having the whole goal of bringing Michigan football back and then wins a national championship. Uh, Super unselfish, never made it about him, was completely fine with being as little involved in the offense as he was. Loves his teammates, seems like a high character kid and I could have seen him coming back to Michigan for another year to try to run it back. But on the other hand, you also might have Jim leaving. You have a lot of your teammates that are leaving, and
Sanctions you
there's
don't know of.
sanctions you don't know of, right? And just all that unknown. And also, it's like, what can JJ McCarthy do to really
What can he
improve
prove? Yeah,
his
what can he
stock?
prove
Yeah,
now?
like
Yeah.
he's done about everything that he could. I mean, we obviously would love to see what he can do if he has to be relied on to throw 30 or 40 times a game, but I don't think that if he's playing at football at Michigan next year, the identity's changing all that much, especially if Sharon Moore takes over at head coach. They're probably sticking with a similar kind of play style because Donovan Edwards will be back and they are a team that wants to continue to run the football and build through the offensive line and be strong in the trenches. So him going to the NFL, like I said, it wouldn't have shocked me either way, but it's just kind of like I don't know how he's going to be evaluated. Honestly,
Yeah.
if you're declaring early, it's because you are a surefire first or second round pick.
Yeah, I agree with you. To me, it's just like, yeah, go early, but like I don't know what NFL team looks at his body of work outside of him being a winner. I don't know what team looks at him as like, that's our guy. Like I don't think there's a team out there that's going like, I want JJ McCarthy on my team as a starter, as a cornerstone of our team. Right? Do you take Jaden Daniels or do you take JJ McCarthy? Right? Like you're kind of
Yeah.
look, I'll take a guy that, yeah, he's a winner. And again, I'm not trying to say that he's not going to succeed in the NFL.
We've seen a lot of winners though not
Yes.
win in
Look
the
at look at look
NFL.
at JT Barrett, for example. He played for
JT
the
Barrett, a
Saints.
winner. Trace
Yeah.
McSorley at Penn State, a winner. Connor Cook at Michigan State, a
Stetson Bennett.
winner. Stetson Bennett, Georgia, a winner.
And they're not playing.
Greg
They're just
McElroy,
not
a
playing.
winner.
Yeah. Colt McCoy.
Yeah, even Colt McCoy, winner.
And it's just you have to have some intangibles there. And again, I think if he came back for 1 year, maybe he raises his stock. But at the end of the day, I just think that he goes. There's so much unknown at Michigan that it's like, do I risk basically not maybe not playing in a bowl game next year? Like you don't know what's going to happen. There's a
Right.
lot of unknown.
So yeah, right now I would say that the quarterbacks everybody's looking at is to be the top of the class are definitely Caleb Williams and Drake May leading the way. And you kind of got like that group of Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, and I'd say JJ McCarthy now. And
Yeah.
would you take JJ McCarthy over Michael Penix,
No. No.
JJ over Jaden Daniels,
No.
over Bo Nix?
Mm,
I think I'd
no.
take JJ over Bo Nix.
No. The reason why I think because Bone. I think that one's pretty even. I would take Bo Nix just because there's been I think a longer like I feel like pages of work now. I think it's about the same, but I know JJ's one more, but I think Bo has maybe a little more of that athleticism freakiness to him than JJ does. Like JJ's a good athlete, not saying he's not. But I will say about the Penix thing, I just think Penix has a better capability of playing the pro style offense.
Yeah, I think that
And
he
JD
really
Daniels is
had
just
to.
a freak.
Yeah, I think Michael Penix had to prove that he can stay healthy after those knee injuries he was having at IU, but I think the talent was always there, and he obviously showed that, leading the country in passing yards both seasons he was at Washington. But I'm just waiting to see how much that age is gonna
Yeah.
impact because I think he's 24, and kind of on the flip side, JJ McCarthy hasn't even turned 21 yet. He's
Yeah.
like super young.
Yeah,
So
I think a team will take a punt on him. I think he'll end up being like a second round pick where a team wants to kind of have a guy that can be that guy that learns and grows, and then you throw him in there and maybe he could become something.
we know the Jordan Love type of project can work. We've just seen it.
I mean, I think the perfect fit for him would be like to be going like behind like go to like New Orleans and kind of sit maybe for a year or two, go to one of those places that has a veteran quarterback, not super old quarterback, but a quarterback that you kind of need to give him a little more, couple more years, but yeah.
I would love to see him and Jim in the NFL together.
Oh gosh, don't give it. Oh jeez,
It'd be so fun.
it'd be so annoying, and you know it.
If Jim goes to the Chargers, though, that I was thinking to happen with Herbert there. But if the Raiders decide to not rehire
Which would be
Antonio
stupid,
Pierce,
by the way. Which would be such a dumb choice.
it would be.
But
But
it would be the
if
Raiders' choice.
it would be, yeah, it would be the Raider choice to go with Jim. And then if they end up taking JJ McCarthy with whatever the pick they got, 13th or whatever,
It's gonna be like
getting you
It's gonna be John Gruden all over again, where he just kind of chooses whatever he wants.
a yeah. But I would love to see them pair up in the NFL just for the storyline. But we'll see what happens. We got time. We're gonna go ahead and do what we can to get some analysis on JJ McCarthy. Once we get the combine going and stuff, we'll bring our buddy Joe on, who does great at
Yep.
these film evaluations and mock drafts, and we'll try to get Chris Drew in here maybe,
And we'll
and
give
maybe
and we'll,
even
yeah,
David Cohn.
and we'll give you guys our mock drafts will be coming out probably in the next month and a half or so, probably.
Once
I'm
the NFL
guessing,
order
yeah,
is leveled out and we
probably
have
like a
all the
month and a half, yeah.
declarations set in
Month and a half
stone. Yeah.
we'll have probably about four versions, and they'll all be wrong because that's normally how it works.
Well, shoot,
But
if we
yeah,
see as much movement as we did in this, what was it, last year's
yeah.
draft? All the trades, it was crazy.
Well, yeah, and David Cohn's a guy that we want to have on, maybe to talk about JJ McCarthy, but also to talk about just the fact that he got to witness his team, his the maize and blue. Oh, that hurts me to say.
Dude,
Um,
and his wife's dad was an Alabama
oh, I know,
quarterback.
which just makes it even weirder. Um,
Man,
yeah, but no, I think it's
be a fun discussion.
a great time. But yeah, I think that's all for today, right, Josh? I think that's all for today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let me go ahead and check Sports Center to make sure no breaking news has happened.
yeah.
I know we aren't really
Oh
talking
wait,
basketball, but Pascal Siakam
yes,
did
I
get
was just about
traded
to say
today.
that. Yeah, Pascal Siakam just got traded. Um, which you know, it's news. It's news. We're just not talking about basketball yet. I mean,
Yeah,
other than Ohio State sucks still at basketball.
yeah, if you guys are interested in how Pascal Siakam's season's going, he's averaging 22 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists right now. I can go ahead and give you a rundown on how both teams are doing right now too to see how much this could impact them either way. The Raptors right now, they're the 12th seed in the East right now. They're 15 and 25, so kind of eh. But Pacers, on the other hand, are 6th seed in the East right now, so they're looking for that. I'm assuming that next piece
Behind the Cavs.
to boost ahead of the Cavs. Yeah. The guys that have been playing well for them over there, Miles Turner, still over there. Buddy
Oh,
Hield is over there. Obi Toppin's over there, and uh, oh, new name that I don't recognize.
Oh no.
Halliburton.
Oh, he's a freak. He played for the Kings and then got traded, but he's a freak. He's had a
Okay.
great year. A great year.
Yeah, so maybe Pascal Siakam can come in and help boost Indiana over those next couple teams ahead of him, Miami, Cleveland,
Just
and maybe see himself as a four seed
where
eventually.
the Raptors were about 4 years ago and look where they're at now.
Oh yeah, winning the finals with Kawhi Leonard,
And now they're
incredible.
nothing. But no, so we will talk about basketball probably in the next couple of weeks. We're going to start adding in more basketball talk and start talking about obviously the trade deadline, the All-Star break's coming up. So we'll kind of start talking more basketball. March Madness will be around the corner. So yeah, we're super excited about all of this that will be coming in fray. So yeah, what a show today. And it's warm in these buildings that we're staying in. But no,
Yeah,
Josh, I think this has been a fun show. Maybe we'll be right this week. Maybe we will be wrong. But I hope you guys give your predictions down below. And if you've loved this video on YouTube, go ahead and click that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Let us know. Let us know your favorite thing to do in the snow. Favorite thing to do in the snow. Build a snowman, snowball fight, what it might be.
mm,
And maybe we'll have Josh's answer next week. Maybe we'll have Josh's answer.
I
Maybe
can
I'm
give it
giving a
now if you
week.
want. I already know.
Oh, okay. Then give it now before we go.
Yeah, that's an activity that I've only done once, but it was a blast, and it was skiing up in
Yeah,
Michigan.
I'm just not me being tall just doesn't go well with skis. Just
It was
imagine
a
that
single degree day, and we
like a
had like a
giraffe.
foot of snow up there, and it was, I mean, skiing's a blast. I don't know if it's just that I don't love it enough to go and do it again, but if to pick an activity in the snow, it's definitely going to be
Well,
skiing.
Europe, everyone skis in Europe because obviously mountains everywhere, Switzerland, all that fun stuff.
I have friends that love, I think it's called ice camping, where you pick a
That just
super cold
sounds
day in the winter and
terrible.
you go camping and you pick sleeping bags that can keep you alive up to even 0 degrees, and
Doesn't sound
you
fun.
build fires still, and it's like your camping is just in the winter, and
And you're like,
it's like you guys are wild,
and you're
dude.
like, give me a hotel. um,
Yeah, it's like I'm already kind of indifferent on camping when the weather's nice, but then you're trying to like go out when it's like super cold out. It's like just dress warm. It's like, yeah,
yeah,
but
and I would say for me it's snowball fight. I just love a good snowball fight. That's what I would do. And so, yeah, below, give us what you like to do in the snow, whether it's skiing, sledding, snowing, snowboarding, snowball fight, whatever it might be. Let us know below. And if you love the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then make sure you share it with family and friends. Allow them to listen and have a good time. And make sure you have a great weekend. Check out the games this weekend. Let us know if we were right or if we were wrong, or maybe we're just completely out of it and we've lost our minds. That's probably the case. But anyways, I hope you guys have a great weekend. And until next time, we'll see ya.